you please welcome to the stage Kevin Nusser?
So it's 1991. I'm 29. I'm in my second year of a PhD program, and I'm studying reproductive physiology at Penn State. And I'm studying with Dr. Dan Deaver. I had met Dan at a science meeting, and I was really excited because I was going to be learning about the role of the pituitary gland in sex. The first thing Dan taught me was the difference between submitting grants and actually getting grants. Because he had talked to me about these millions of dollars he was going to have, all the people that were going to be in the lab that I was going to be working with. When I got to Penn State, it was me and Dan. No grant money. In fact, I was Dan Deaver's cash cow. So for that first year, people from around the country sent our lab samples of pig blood, cow blood, sheep blood, and what my job was to process them and look at hormones, luteinizing hormone, growth hormone, insulin, and would charge them a small fee, and that's how I generated money for the lab. It was all hand pipetting. There were no machines. Super tedious work. Not only was the work tedious, but me and Dan had also become quite tedious. Probably the funniest encounter was us arguing whether what I did was a food violation, and what it was I had put a tinfoil mask of my face up on the wall with a cigar in it. So that was some good arguments. And in fact, at one point he said, Kevin, I don't think you're ever going to be a famous scientist. Yeah, and I said, well, it looks like I came to the right lab. So let's just say it was a combative relationship. So I'm in the second year of my program, and Dan volunteers me to help out another scientist that's trying to develop male contraception. And so yeah, this is a long time ago. It's still not here, but regardless, one, it was something I was interested in. Learning new techniques is always interesting. It would also give space between me and Dan, so I would be working somewhere else. I thought that was important. So I went out and talked to this person, and most people know that sperm fertilize the egg, but it's a lot more elegant than that. There's some really elegant processes involved. And so one of the first things the sperm does is it will actually attach to the uterine wall, and it undergoes what's called capacitation. And basically it's exchange of membrane proteins on the sperm. And then once it's matured, then it can swim up to the egg. And then once it's at the egg, it undergoes what's called an acrosome reaction, and through digestive enzymes and other processes, it kind of opens up and it's ready to bind to the egg and mechanically fertilize it. It's a very elegant process. What he wanted from me was not elegant. He wanted sheep sperm, that's it. Just sheep sperm. Now, I grew up in Joseph, Oregon, and so I'm used to working with animals. I've never collected semen from them, though. So I went back to the lab, and Dan's like, how'd it go? And I can tell he wanted to see me scared and unsure, and I said, it went fine. I was terrified, really. And I was unsure if I could do this. It's one of the times where you're asked to invent and perfect something at the same time, something that's very, very hard to do. But I told Dan no problem. And so the first thing I had to do was learn the process. And so the next day I went out to the barn, and they had perfected the process in cows. And so basically I went out to watch them collect semen from bulls. It's a pretty amazing thing. So let me tell you about it. So it takes, well, first I should go through some terms. Okay, a bull is definitely a male cow. Everybody knows that. A steer is a castrated bull. Ram is a male sheep. Ewe is a female sheep. An artificial vagina is kind of like a fleshlight. It's basically inner tube sewed together, injected with water so you can put it in the oven and keep the spermies happy. And at the end of it is a little test tube. And so that we've done through the terminology. So Norm and Jeff did this procedure, which I watched. And so Norm brings in the steer. The other thing I should tell you is domestic animals have an estrus cycle as opposed to humans and primates, which have a menstrual cycle. And so estrus is basically, if you hear animals that are in heat, they have an estrus cycle. It just means that they're only going to breed during certain times of that cycle, unlike humans. And so to get around this in the cow, what they do is they take a steer and then they estrogenize it, give it estradiol. It makes this steer kind of smell like a cow, and then the bull is fine with it. So Norm's job is to lead in the steer and tie it to the stall. And then Jeff's job is to actually get under the steer. And what he has to do is he has to divert the penis when the bull goes to mount into the artificial vagina. Okay, the other thing you should know, humans and primates, basically, it's muscular vascular system for the penis. You know, blood, Viagra, they work on the same principles. Domestic species have a fibroelastic penis, and that basically means it's like a hard bone all the time, but it's in a sigmoidal shape, S shape, and so when the refractor muscle relaxes, that is when the penis gets extended. So it's a little different, and it's pretty amazing to watch. So Norm leads the steer in. Jeff gets the artificial vagina ready, and he's down by the steer. Norm then goes and gets the bull. I don't know if you guys have been close to bulls, but bulls weigh over a ton. They are huge animals, and when they thrust, they actually come off the ground. Norm walks with a limp for a reason. He's had his foot broken 2 times doing this procedure, yeah. Dangerous. And so what happens, Norm brings in the bull mounts. Jeff's job is to grab not the shaft of the penis, but the sheath of the penis and divert it into the artificial vagina. It sounds pretty easy. The penis of a bull can be 3 feet long. And it thrusts twice only. But anyway, the bull mounts. Jeff diverts the penis into the artificial vagina, and he's got like 5 mils of semen. This is what I'm going to do, but I'm going to modify it for the sheep. So the next day, I get on my mountain bike and bike out to the barn. I modify the artificial vagina, put it in the oven, Then I put on my blue and white coveralls. And then I go get the ewe and tie her up. I'm not concerned about the estrus cycle because I'm tying her up and I'm giving her grain for distraction. She's happy. Then I go get the artificial vagina and go tether one of the male rams. The rams weigh between 100 and 150 pounds, about equivalent. I'm a little heavier, but about equivalent. Lead him in, and then I can tell that he likes the ewe. Domestic species also have a response, and it's called the Fleming response. I don't know if anybody's heard it. It's a German word that means spiteful, or to look spiteful. And so what it is when they're near a ewe or an animal that's in estrus, what they do is they purse their lower lip and their upper lip. And what it does is it blocks the nostrils, and then they breathe. He looked very spiteful, which is good. And so I'm a checklist kind of guy. And so I'm standing there. I got my ewe, I got my ram, artificial vagina. Rams are not checklist kind of animals. So while I'm doing this, he mounts the ewe. I have to push him off before he can ejaculate. My job is to collect the semen. So I push him off, and then I knelt down by the ewe, artificial vagina in the left hand. I'm ready to grab the sheath of the penis in my right hand. And I can hear him. He still likes her, which is good. He mounts the ewe, I grab the sheath, I have the artificial vagina, but I'm not coordinated. I can't invent and perfect something at the same time. I can't get the penis into the artificial vagina. So I have to push him off. He doesn't even sniff the next time. He just jumps right back on. And so I wasn't ready. I had to push him off a third time. At this point, I'm thinking, Dan is going to love me telling him that I failed. And so I'm starting to get a little nervous. So I make sure, artificial vagina in the left hand, I'm bent down, I'm ready to grab that sheath. I know it's the third time for him. He's probably frustrated. But I don't hear any spitefulness. I don't see any movement. And so I look over at the ram. And the ram is staring at me. He's not looking at the ewe. He's not looking around. He's just looking right in my eyes. I hadn't taken animal behavior yet, and so I didn't have anything. I don't know. And then he stepped back, which I thought was kind of curious. And then his head slowly comes up. I thought, I don't know. And then my head exploded. He headbutts me. The forehead, the horns, I'm out flat. I don't know if I get knocked out or what. All I remember is I open my eyes and I see Dan, the ram. I see the ram standing over me, just looking down at me. At this point, I'm thinking, do I give up or do I stand my ground? And again, I'm thinking of Dan and his smiling, shaking his head. So I get back up, get the artificial vagina, get lower down on the ewe, and make sure I'm ready. Now it sounds weird, but it's a sensuous experience. And by sensuous, I mean the senses are there. Because I can still, besides the headache and possible concussion, I can still smell that manure mixed with hay smell. That's my head is basically on a U. And if you've been around sheep at all, they have lanolin, which coats the wool. And so it's manure, hay, lanolin. I have coveralls on, and so I'm really hot at this time. My back hurts as much as my head. There's calves starting to move for their food. There's other sheep baying, and so all the senses are active. I'm still there. But then I hear the spitefulness. And then he mounts the U. I grab the sheath. I have the artificial vagina. 2 thrusts, and he's done. Hold it up. A little mill of semen is in that test tube. I have collected semen. I take the ram back to a stall. I take the sample in, put it in the lab, and say, "Here you go." I go back to my old lab, and I know Dan wants a report about how it went, and so I don't tell him. At the end of the day, he pokes his head in and says, "Hey, how'd it go?" I didn't tell him about the headbutt. I didn't tell him about the concussion or the pain or anything like that. I said, "Oh, it went fine." And I should say, that's basically what you do with assholes, because, bosses are usually assholes. And the 2 things you can do is you can either give up or stand your ground. So I was standing my ground. Yeah, thanks. So I had won my small victory. I had collected semen, but Dan was still the man. I was still his graduate student, only now I had collected semen. So the point, it was a small victory, but that's what life is. You got to take those, because there's always going to be more Rams and more Dans. Thank you.